In this video, we're going through an IELTS Speaking Part 2 cue card, and that is, describe a difficult thing you did that was successful. It's a tough one. You have to say what it was, how you completed it, why it was difficult, and explain how you felt about doing it. You can see that you often have to explain how you feel about things, and that's sometimes the hardest bit to remember. Straight on with our model answer on the great language, and we start with a triumph, and this is a big success, a big achievement, or a big victory. So you can say that passing the IELTS exam is one of your greatest triumphs, one of your big successes. If you pass an exam or a test or a course, you complete it successfully. And it's really important to remember this verb. Many candidates say to do an exam or get an exam. That's not really very good. You should always say to pass an exam, or if things go wrong, to fail an exam. Let's hope you don't fail your exam. Moving on, and to detest, and this means to dislike or hate something or somebody very strongly. It's really good to know lots of words connected to feelings, positive feelings and negative feelings, and we'll see some more negative words later on in this answer. If you have a creative flair, then you've got a natural ability to use your imagination well. This word flair is very useful. Some people have a flair for languages. They're very good at learning languages. Some people have a flair for mathematics. It just seems to come natural to them. It's easy for them. So if you have a flair, you have a natural ability or talent. If you pass your exam with flying colours, you complete it easily and successfully, and you get a good grade. So this is lovely language, because so often in the exam you need to speak about education. And there's another phrase coming up, which is another great phrase for explaining how you might pass your exam. We'll come to that really soon. If something is beyond you, it's impossible for you to understand it. So maybe your teacher goes on and on about physics, and it's completely beyond you. You just don't get it at all. If you're out of your depth, then you don't have the knowledge or the information or the experience or the skill to deal with a situation. And to make matters worse, this is a lovely phrase which native speakers often use. And we use it to indicate that something has made a bad situation even more difficult. So firstly, science is very difficult for you, but to make matters worse, the teacher was terrible. So a second bad thing. To drone on, this is a lovely verb. It means to talk for a long time and in a boring way, using a boring voice. I'm sure you've had teachers who just drone on. They say the same thing again and on they go, and you fall asleep. So this is a lovely phrase. It is a way of criticizing somebody, usually a teacher, who speaks in a boring way. If something is monotonous, then it's boring because it doesn't change. So again, a teacher's voice might be monotonous. I'm trying very hard to make my voice not monotonous. And if you take notes, then you listen to the teacher and write down the most important things. So you maybe have a notebook or an exercise book to take down some notes. Incomprehensible, a lovely adjective, impossible to understand. So if you study algebra and it makes no sense, you can say, it's just incomprehensible. I can't understand it. It's completely beyond me. And terminology. And terminology refers to special words or expressions only used when you're talking about a particular subject, such as science. So these are words which non-experts, people who don't study science, non-experts don't understand. And we'll see the word term later, which is very similar. If you learn something by heart or off by heart, you learn it so that you can later repeat it from memory. So some people learn mathematical equations off by heart. Some people learn poetry off by heart. Again, you so often have to speak about education in the exam. So learning these phrases is absolutely wonderful. If you can't bear something, then you dislike or hate it so much you cannot tolerate it and you cannot accept it. So we've already had detest and now we can't bear. So these are great phrases, great verb structures to use to describe your strong negative feelings. And entry requirements. This is more great educational language. This is something that you need to achieve before you can enter a school or a university or maybe a country. So if you want to study at university in Canada, then you need an IELTS score. That is one of the entry requirements. The phrase, there's no point, and we use this with ing, so there's no point worrying, there's no point trying, there's no point applying. It means there's no purpose, it's a waste of time. And to retake means to do a test or exam or course again because you failed it. So maybe you have to retake your IELTS exam. Let's hope not. If you are in a daze, then you cannot think clearly. So somebody has probably told you so much information that it just doesn't make sense. Your head is spinning. And if something goes over your head, it's too difficult or strange for you to understand. So your teacher's explanation might just go over your head. You just can't understand it. An assignment, this is a piece of work which your teacher or boss asks you to complete. Your teacher might ask you to do some research or write an essay and hand it in next week. That would be an assignment. And if someone tells you off, they speak angrily to you because they're unhappy that you did something wrong or bad. It's usually a parent or a teacher who tells you off. I hope you haven't been told off recently. To pull your socks up, a lovely idiomatic expression, meaning to stop being lazy and to start making a lot of effort. You get a bad grade, it's time to pull your socks up, time to start working hard, and to turn over a new leaf can also be used in this context to start behaving in a better way. So you were lazy, you didn't do your assignments, now you're going to turn over a new leaf. You're going to start working hard. To look something up, this means to find out information, maybe by using a dictionary or a website. And of course, in spoken English, examiners love these two-part verbs, such as to look up. Weird means strange or unusual. It's a complex and strong word, so good to use. And a term, we already had terminology, and a term is a word or expression used when talking about a particular subject. So terminology is often used generally and a term for one particular word or phrase. To praise means to say positive things about a person's achievements or characteristics, and to have butterflies means to feel nervous about something, often about how well you will do. So if you have an exam coming up, then you might have butterflies or have butterflies in your stomach. Make or break is a nice expression. It refers to the factor which will decide whether you succeed or fail. So in this example, the exam is make or break. If you pass, you can go to university. If you fail, you can't. And to breathe a huge sigh of relief, and we do this when something bad which you were worried about does not happen. So, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Thank goodness it didn't all end badly. If you pass an exam by the skin of your teeth, then you're successful, but only just. Do you remember to pass an exam with flying colours? That's when you pass it really easily. But if you pass by the skin of your teeth, you very nearly failed. And commitment, if you have commitment, you have willingness to give your time and effort to achieve something, and determination, the ability to continue doing something, being determined, doing something even though it is difficult. And academic, a nice word, usually an adjective, connected to studying and thinking. So you might be familiar with the term academic fees. These are the costs which you have to pay when you go to university. But you can be academic. You can work in a way which gets good grades, and that would be academic. Time to read through the model answer so you can see all of this great language in context. I've decided to tell you about one of my greatest triumphs, passing my end-of-year science exam last summer. I should start by making it clear that I detest chemistry, biology and physics. I have a creative flair and hope to become a fashion designer, so I got through my art exams with flying colours. But science is beyond me. I'm completely out of my depth. To make matters worse, the teacher doesn't inspire me. She stands at the front, droning on in her monotonous voice, and expects us to take notes and learn all that incomprehensible terminology off by heart. I can't bear it. The problem is that getting a decent grade in science is an entry requirement for university. There's no point applying if you fail it, and you only get one chance. You can't retake it. At the start of the course, none of it made any sense. I sat in class in a daze. It went completely over my head. But when I came bottom of the class for my first assignment, my mum told me off and said I'd better pull my socks up. From that moment on, I turned over a new leaf. I wrote down every word the teacher said, looked up all the weird terms, and made a revision plan. I've never tried so hard in all my life. Even the teacher noticed and praised me. I had butterflies on the day of the exam. It was make or break. When I got my result, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. I'd passed by the skin of my teeth. I felt proud of myself. I'd shown commitment and determination and achieved my goals. I'd proved to myself that I could be academic when necessary. Okay, quiz time. Let's see if you've learnt some of that great language which is going to impress the IELTS examiner. We start with multiple choice. I must admit that I had something in my stomach. I was so nervous of failing. Well, let's hope you don't think the answer is baboons or bonobos or bees, because it's butterflies. You have butterflies in your stomach. You're nervous. Next question. When I failed the test, I realized it was time to pull my something up and work. What should you pull up? Of course, your socks. Don't pull up your shoes, your shorts, or your shirt. Next time, it was cold, and to make something worse, it started snowing. The answer is, of course, to make matters worse. So you've got one bad thing, and then along comes another bad thing. And we have to learn that story off by something and repeat it perfectly in class. The answer is, of course, off by heart. Here you have to find the missing expression. When I realized I hadn't actually lost my smartphone, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. I was so relieved. I was so glad that the bad thing hadn't happened. I breathed a huge sigh of relief, and you needed 50 marks, and I got 51. I passed that test by the skin of my teeth. You only just passed. Well done. I am brilliant at math and got every question right, so I passed the test with flying colours. You did great.